episode today is going to be a little unbearable. We're talking about a pretty funny and cool mech, but it's not why it's going to be unbearable. I woke up and chose violence. Or I guess in this case, unbearable cringe. Because today's video is going to be aggressively Scottish, Steve. Aggressively and offensively. Turn that shit up to 11 because today we're talking about the most aggressively meme-worthy Scottish mech in the game. The favourite mech of the bagpipe blaring, arse-kicking, traitor-killing Blackwatch them. Oh god.
We have died. Thank you all for tuning into the video today.
I couldn't even get past like 2 paragraphs. This mech is so done with your bullshit that it'll pile drive you into the ground with a flying roundhouse kick rather than regularly putting you in the ground by just shooting you. Plus, every time you mention its name, the Highlander, bagpipes start playing and you can hear the faint voice of Scotland Forever echoing over the battlefield.
I was really gonna make me go do this for the rest of the episode. Hold on.
By all means, take a few more hours. The suspense really is making it better.
Yes. Next, make an account.
You're making an account? What are you doing?
Continue on. Continue on.
What are you... Okay, alright. I will leave you have your weird thing. While Steve is off busy doing whatever in another dimension, introductions for all the people that are hopefully going to be watching the video. You gotta say hello, Steve. We gotta remember to introduce my co-host.
Hello.
Wonderful. Welcome to Science Insanity, a channel dedicated to bringing my love of science fiction and all its wonderfully stupid brilliance to you, the viewer. Today, bad memes, terrible accents, and disjointed chaos as me and Steve desperately struggle to do whatever it is. Me having a terrible sore throat, trying to do a Scottish accent, and Steve, I guess, trying to work with technology for the first time in his life, because I don't know what you're doing over there, man, but it's really...
You'll know. You'll know.
You keep saying that, and I keep thinking and more that I just won't find out.
It's a long episode.
Alright, fair enough. So, like I was saying, on to the topic of the day. The Highlander. An assault mech that is one of the most offensively bad manners mech that you can bring into a fight. This is the thing that you pick if you're the kind of person that shows up to a boxing match with a gun, because this mech is just... It's not fair, it doesn't fight fair, it's pure stupid, and it's the kind of thing that the people who actually use it aren't really here to play Battletech or Mech Warrior, they're here to kick you in the teeth and curb stomp you. That's the entire point of bringing this thing. Because despite being only a little bit lighter than the big boys, King Crab, Atlas, Dire Wolf, like the big 100-tonners, all that, the Highlander is one of those rare few weapons. Did you have to do it right in the middle of my sentence?
You said the Highlander, and earlier you said every time you hear Highlander, you hear bagpipes.
Oh my god.
You should have known it was coming.
Okay, on the one hand, if you do it every time, that's... I imagine the viewers would find that really funny. That I'm gonna die if you do it every time, and I'm gonna make a conscious effort now to try to avoid every time I say it, because I put the name in here.
Say
at
what?
Least, you know what I was gonna say. I put the name in
What
here
were
at
you
least like
gonna
the name of the mech, which you know what it is.
What is that again?
The Highlander. Spent like 5 minutes searching for that. Are they playing it on a kazoo?
No. Okay, so all the original ones, they were not that good. They were just like tuning and stuff instead of like a normal soundboard version of it. So,
Oh my god, that's so awful. I love it and hate it in equal measure. Thanks, Steve.
You are welcome.
That was so bad. Oh my god. So, let me just highlight every single time I say the name so that I know when it's coming up like a landmine. The insert name here, mech, is one of those rare few weapons that just feels unfair to be using. Like at all times you're punching down, and that's because it's got some of that Star League magic. Little of that beautiful white energy powder, some of those racehorse roids, a little bit of go juice before the Olympics, right? It's made all the funnier because this mech was supposed to be really boring, like really bog standard city defense mech that just kind of sat in cover and plinked away at people with long-range missiles and railgun shots, right? But it ended up being a melee monster that's doing crazy mech foo and rushing down the enemy. They even had to redesign the mech a whole bunch to make something like that more viable, since the people using it would just not listen to the people who built it. And you know what? Perfectly fair. In most cases, the eggheads don't know dick about what the soldiers are actually doing with their equipment.
Real.
It also has jump jets, that wonderful meme-worthy thing that lets mechs fly. One of the very few assault mechs in the setting that can actually just nope out and fly away. Or more like to fly straight towards the enemy for a Kolishangi, and more because the only way to deal with an Ablak is to give a right fucking wallop. I don't even know what half of this bloody slang says. I just found this online and copy-pasted it into the script because I thought it was funny. I don't even know what the hell I'm saying anymore, Steve, help.
I don't think there's hope for you anymore, if I'm being honest here.
We are going to be covering the history of the insert mech name here, what it was built to do, how it evolved into a Scottish meme, and then cover its technical specifications from armor and guns to internal and special components. We'll be going into reasonable detail and ultimately enjoying, or at least in Steve's case, reveling in the suffering he will cause me, as I'm sure I will slip up and say the name on accident a few times, only for him to blast bagpipes at me randomly in the middle of a sentence again.
What name is that?
I don't know. I can't remember. We'll get to it eventually, I'm
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, surely.
You know what would be funny, though? If I force you to do a terrible Scottish impression as well. Wouldn't that be great?
That would be funny, but not as funny as me playing bagpipes every time after somebody says Highlander.
I fucking hate the fact that you still do it when you say it. I was okay.
Yes.
I was okay with it when I say it because I can control when I say it, kind of.
I won't go over it too much. Trust me.
So, starting off with some of its history, the Highlander was designed during the height of the Star. Oh, fucking hell! 2 minutes. Can I get 2 minutes, please?
Just don't say it.
Oh my god, okay, so this mech was designed during the height of the Star League and near the turn of the century, first coming into service in 2592, technically making this mech a millennial.
Oh, not a millennial.
Look, it's like 600 years in the future in the BattleTech setting. It's fine, all right? They're not
Different type of millennial.
Different
It's
type
okay.
of millennial. This mech had an incredibly heavy weapons load for the time at both long and short ranges. Had a lot of armor, impressive top speed, or at least reasonable for an assault mech, and alongside the jump jets mounted in the lower back and legs, the Highlander was meant to be an excellent city. God fucking damn it, I said it again.
I like how you realized it before I could even get back to the mouse.
I was like a word and a half after it, and then my brain was like, fuck, you did the thing. So the designers intended for the things to be used in a city or urban environment, using the buildings as cover while slamming damage and critical hits into approaching enemies. When they got close, the mech could use its mobility to reposition to better ground for close-range brawling, using its missiles, lasers, and raw bulk to push the enemies battered and back. The name was in that paragraph, I managed to not say it. I'm getting better at avoiding landmines. Blow myself up a couple more times and I'll be immune to them completely.
Hey, you know what else you have to blow on in order to play? A bagpipes.
You've been given a cease and desist order.
Oh.
Legal action shall be taken. Of course, because the eggheads, like I mentioned, have never sat in a mech's cockpit before, they have no idea what mech warriors are like. They give you a massive, well-armored, fast mech that's got some insanely powerful weapons, and it can fly. And with that kind of situation, Steve, what do you think the first thing all of these test pilots and early adopters did with it? What do you think they did?
Jump on stuff, fly over things, pretend to be Superman.
With the power of pre-reading the topic of the day, you've actually managed to figure out what we're talking about.
Hey, it's a miracle.
So yeah, the pilots of this thing, they tried to punch things. Pretty much immediately, all the way to the earliest test pilots and prototypes. The people who were using this mech would try to get it into close-range engagements because despite having the heaviest weapons meant for long-range possible, dumbfiring them point-blank into someone's chest will still really, really hurt. Funny enough though, this actually caused a lot of problems for the mech since it was never supposed to do this.
I don't believe you. I think that was the intended role. That's the only thing they could have designed it around.
Well, it became the intended role later on once people realized how hilariously effective it was, but, I mean, Initially, nobody expected people to be suicidal enough to just yeet their mech at an enemy using jump jets and just hope for the best. Often the mech would damage itself or its weapons pretty bad, since one of its arms is literally just a gun, so when they would try to slap people with it, that would cause some problems. Generally, firearms don't make the best melee weapons. There are a number of changes that the engineers made for the final production run. First, they added reinforcements to its gun arm, adding huge armor panels and a strengthened barrel cover. Yeah, so you'll notice in those images you can actually see the armor paneling in the gun plates and stuff, which is pretty cool that they actually modeled it, because some of the very old models don't really have that on there. The next thing they did was consult every gym bro in a 1,000-year light-year radius, coming to the conclusion that, in fact, every day was leg day. As such, they massively reinforced the legs of the Highlander, making it far more son of a bitch. I'm going to lose my mind. You're actually going to kill me by the end of this episode, Steve.
Might be worth it. Could make for very good content.
I'm just hoping and praying that the audience finds it funnier than I do, because man, oh man, am I not finding it funny after like the 4th time.
You know they will.
As such, they massively reinforced the legs of the mech, making it far more survivable and resistant to breaking when the mech warriors would rocket jump at someone and attempt to punch them. When the mech finally went into full production, it became one of the most aggressive assault platforms available. Most of the really big boys, as the name suggests, like assault mechs, were pretty aggressive and they would just like walk at the enemy trying to kill them. But this mech was aggressive in the way that a lot of light and medium mechs are. It proved to work best maneuvering, open firing from outside an enemy's return fire range with its missiles and Gauss rifle, and closing in using the jump jets and cover to really get close to the enemies up close and personal. When it got within range of the smaller weapons, it would use the jump jets to rapidly try to throw itself at someone and enter melee range. Its massive armor, size, and weight letting it quite literally kick and stomp the shit out of most of its competitors. And unlike a lot of other assault mechs though, the Highlander's weapons let it put down withering... Oh, I didn't even catch it that time. I didn't even know it was coming.
Hey, you're the one that inspired this whole idea.
I did, and I regret it immediately. I thought it would be funny. I thought I would do like 2 Scottish accent bits and then we'd be done for the video and it would be normal, but no, I was wrong. I was so wrong.
How long is this video anticipated to take?
If I go quickly, like another 30 minutes. And if I keep getting interrupted, like fucking decades of my life, probably. Dragging us back on track for the video. Like I was attempting to say before I got bagpipe blasted, unlike a lot of other assault mechs though, this thing's weapons let it put down withering fire at long range to soften up enemies before closing in.
What happens when they get jumped on though?
Oh, don't worry, we'll get to that. I imagine you've read the article, so you know that there's a fancy name for it.
Yes.
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 We will.
What is it called?
Oh no, I'm gonna have to say the name when we get there because it's the name of the thing. I'm railroaded. I can see the train coming, but I'm gonna try to run the opposite direction to get as much distance between me and it as possible. The mech performed so well in almost all environments and roles that it's like the fictional version of the F-16. Like literally every single organization group in the Star League had this mech, and everyone who didn't wanted it. And they wanted them in bulk, from the furthest reaches of the Star League to the core, to the very periphery of human space. This was one of the best fighting units that you could get in this weight class. And it was really good at stomping people into the mud all across the stars.
That's how all things should be. We should no longer be fighting with guns and lasers and missiles and all this. It's just whoever weighs more can jump on top of the other.
Steve, I don't think that works in real life. Once you get to like a certain weight bracket, I don't think people can jump anymore.
If you throw enough thrusters on there, you can.
I'm just imagining someone on a mobility scooter with like rockets strapped to the bottom. So as time went on, the daring, brashness, the pure kilt-wearing, I don't give a fuck energy of this mech manifested in arguably the most insane tactic of any assault mech in the setting. And before I get into that, the train's about to pull into the station, but do you know what death from above is? Like, do you know what that tactic is?
Yeah, it's where you're above something and then you kill it on your way down, slash as soon as you hit the ground.
Not exactly. That's what happens when you fail a death from above, because you miss. So it is a battlefield tactic, and it's normally only used by smaller mechs to get some extra damage in against bigger mechs, and it relies on having jump jets. What you actually do is you run at the enemy mech, you shoot at them, you use your jump jets to get a whole bunch of height, and then you let gravity and physics do the damage for you. You turn your mech into a wrecking ball, and you try to land on top of the enemy. You're essentially trying to use the mass and weight of your mech to crush them or crash into them, destabilize them, knock them down. This mech, however, is 90 tons. So when the pilots of this thing start doing death from above attacks on people, they would quite literally drive enemy mechs into the ground, burying or crushing them like a hammer driving a nail. This became so prolific, it became so unique to the assault mech doing it, that it got its own name and became a psychological warfare technique as much as it was a real strategy, and they called it the Highlander burial.
Hey, I let you get the whole word out first.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I knew that you had your finger hovering over the button. I could feel it from the other side of the computer screen. You were just waiting there to press it the moment you heard it. The train finally ran me over. There we go.
It has arrived at the station.
The pilots of this thing got so into the idea of pile driving their enemies into the dirt that eventually people started getting intimidated just by seeing them on the battlefield, and they could push enemies to a further engagement range because nobody wanted to get close to this mech on the off emergency chance that it would suddenly fly at you like a drunken badger trying to maul you to death. And it's one of those things where you really have to put yourself in the position of the enemy. Unfortunately, despite being a wonderful mech, this thing suffered the same that every other battle mech did once the 2070s rolled around. Everything is exploding, and everybody with an IQ higher than their height in yards are suddenly dead. The succession wars hit this mech hard, specifically because of how quality it was. If mechs were bad, or situational, or like unreliable, then they were almost guaranteed to survive the horrors of the succession wars, and the further horrors of Comstar trying to steal all the shit and technology and just hiding them afterwards. But the better a mech was, the more likely it was that the great houses would throw them into any battle or use them everywhere as the sledgehammer at the front of armored forces. And this is what killed most of the famous mechs in the setting, or at least relegated them to small numbers rarely used in combat. The First Succession War ground down this mech's numbers to the point where most of them were destroyed beyond reclamation or repair. With everyone and their mother having their hands on them, they made up a huge number of the heavy or assault lances, eating the worst of the fighting. And by the time the First Succession War had ended, their numbers had been cut down dramatically. And then, because no one in this setting is allowed to be happy, and it's battle tech, not peace tech, when the Second Succession War started up barely after the first one simmered down, well, the greater houses being less willing to throw their armies into the meat grinder, it was a slow descent into obscurity when the last few of these mechs finally bit the dust. The final blow finally came when their factory got destroyed. From this point on, the mech essentially became a dying sight. Coupled with the fact that Comstar is still not done messing around, by the way. They really had it out for this mech for some reason.
Most average Comcast moment.
They started hoarding this mech. For most other mechs that Comstar actually, just stole from the inner sphere, they started up a kind of Baroque hand-built style of production, like the King Crab, secretly producing parts and spares and stuff and training on the mechs over the centuries. But for this thing, Comstar just started hoarding. They went around stealing, buying, and salvaging the mechs everywhere they could find, and eventually managed to accumulate the majority of all of them that still had any advanced equipment on them in pretty much the entirety of the Inner Sphere. They just collected them all and then hid them away in secret vaults. The most notable group to keep actually using this mech was kind of a massive meme, but they were the Northwind Highlanders. There's an S, it doesn't... There was an S. It was a different word. It doesn't count. It's a plural. It shouldn't have counted.
It shouldn't have, but you said it like it was gonna count. So therefore it does count now.
Can you take a wild guess what kind of people they are?
Scottish.
Yes, absolutely. The world of Northwind, where they are based, is an entire world of Scotland. It's just really, really big Scotland. Like the climate, the continent, the territory, it's just big Scotland. The whole planet.
That's baller actually. Cliffs everywhere.
And all the people there are just Scottish people. An entire world of Scottish people. We are living in the darkest timeline.
Are we? Are we really?
Yes. Northwind men of Highland were descended all the way from the last regiment of independent Scottish forces that went off planet to find and colonize their own world during the initial exodus from Earth. The mercenary group basically are the only group in the Inner Sphere that can muster these things in the force that you saw before the Succession Wars, bringing multiple of them in heavy lances to any engagement they might need. And they are a terrifying force on the battlefield, because when they pull off the mech's special maneuver, I dodged both the names that time, let's go.
What's that special maneuver called?
We talked about it earlier, I'm sure you remember. It's fine.
Oh, okay.
They got so good at performing death from above maneuvers in this mech that it became an entire brand that they had set up. If you saw their symbol on the opposing mechs, you know damn well they are absolutely going to be throwing their mechs at you as if there is nothing in the world stopping them. And that brings us finally neatly around to technical details. We'll start with the base model, talk a little bit about some custom versions, and then we're done with this hellish episode. I'm going to cut a few parts out that don't need to be there, where it's just waffling about the Black Watch and stuff. We've already done a video on them, so I'm going to exclude it so I don't have to mess up anymore. Starting with the base model, however, stop laughing at me, I control your paycheck. But let's start with the actual weapons that this thing carries, because I've made allusion to it a couple times. The primary weapon of this mech is a Gauss rifle, the massive gun that makes up the entirety of its arm. As we already talked about, this is a hilariously powerful weapon in the lore, and if you hit a mech just right, even if they're a heavy or assault mech, you can do a lot of damage. The Gauss rifle that the thing is actually equipped with can also shoot out to, like, at least in Battletech. The ranges in Battletech are kind of a little bit silly compared to real life and how big the weapons are, but like in real life, tanks can shoot you like 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers away, but in Battletech, this thing has some of the longest range you're going to find. The Gauss rifle can shoot you over 2 kilometers away, and its effective range is over 1 kilometer, meaning that the slug will have about maximum performance up to out to 1 kilometer. Supporting it, it's got a massive bank of missiles. You'll notice that the entire side of one of its torsos is just, it's all missiles, nothing but missile tubes. That is a 20 bank of long-range missiles that all fire at once in a big swarm. Similarly fires out to over 1 kilometer. And by the time you actually close into brawling range, or range for it to do the legendary Highlander death from above.
You said the Highlander death from above.
Son of a bitch, did I get myself?
Yes, you did.
God, kill me by caber tossing a telephone pole at me.
How about we kill you by Highlander burial?
Okay, normally I'd be really upset, but that was actually a pretty good joke. That was actually pretty good. I'll let that one slide.
Outstanding.
Once you actually get into close range with it, the mech is equipped with an SRM launcher and 2 medium lasers. The short-range missiles fire in a bank of 6 and pack one hell of a punch, while the medium lasers allow the mech to have a little bit of stand-back emergency damage.
Oh, those damn pigeon lasers.
No. Small lasers are pigeon lasers, and they're meant for killing infantry. Medium lasers are like your kind of anti-everything, but not good at anything laser. They can kill everything reasonably effectively, even like helicopters and stuff, but they don't have the range or the firepower to really be a main weapon. You want something like a large laser or like rockets or something for that.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure all of these weapons don't overheat, because while a Gauss rifle is relatively cold, doesn't really generate any heat, the multiple missile launchers and the lasers run very hot, so 12 heat sinks help keep this thing running cool and allow the mech to perform in very long endurance engagements. Powering all of it, it's got a 270 rating engine, which is pumping out some magic, because for a 90-ton mech, it should not be able to run at 54 kilometers with a 270. It should be significantly slower. It should be somewhere around like 46 to 48 kilometers per hour. So I have no idea where they're getting the extra like 8 kilometers.
It's just built different.
Yeah, there's a little bit of magic in this thing. I don't know how it's doing it, but it's getting more power out of the engine than it reasonably should.
It's just the power of the Scottish, man. That's all you gotta chalk it up to.
Pure, unadulterated, I will get this shit done energy. This mech, being built during the Star League era, also comes with a few unique subsystems. It has a Starlight LX-1 targeting system, which the specifics of it are not that important, but suffice to say, it's a lot better than the stuff you'll find during the Succession War era. This allowed the Highlander to very effectively track targets at long range. Can I get a count on that? Can all the people that are probably going to watch the
Someone
video,
in the comments.
someone in the comment, can you give me a count on that? How many goddamn times has he played those stupid bagpipes? How many times has that happened? Seriously, because oh my god.
I'm gonna say it's not that much. It's probably sitting down around like 15.
Oh my. The targeting system for the Star League era was relatively advanced compared to the stuff that would come later, and it allowed the mech to effectively target people at multiple kilometer distances, as well as detecting them through light obstructions like shrubbery, trees, and even some low-scale urban environments like housing and suburbs and stuff. So this mech was very good at seeing you and had the power to slap the shit out of you even at extreme ranges. Protecting it as well, it had two really useful advancements. Number one was ferrofibrous armor, which means that it could put the same amount of protection for significantly less weight than most of the mechs that would come later. And for all of the Inner Sphere mechs that were fighting the clans, the difference was insane. The Inner Sphere loved ferrofibrous so much that when they managed to somehow destroy clan mechs, they would scrape the ferro off of it like a homeless guy trying to steal copper wiring.
That's an image. Everyone pause and think about that one for a minute.
It was also equipped with case. Case is essentially a system that puts all of the ammunition into blowout compartments so that if it is hit and detonated, it's not going to take the mech with it. It might cripple the part that it's in, like if it's in a torso segment, it might also do damage to the arms and stuff, but it won't blow up and turn your mech into a crater. Coupled with the ferrofibrous armor, the Highlander as a mech was incredibly tough. It could take an enormous amount of shots, and if you did manage to do critical damage to it, it wouldn't explode. And if you did blow up the ammo, well, it's really just the missiles that are put out of commission. It's still got the lasers, and it's still got the burial that it can put you into the ground with. So the base model of this mech is pretty damn good. It's got a lot of high technology, it's got a lot of really good systems in it that make an incredibly powerful force on the battlefield. But there are a number of different versions of it that came about. The most common one is, well, the downgraded version, the 733. Instead of simply disappearing in a hail of gunfire like a lot of the more really advanced mechs, a lot of the chassis for this mech were downgraded with primitive technology. They had the ferro stripped out, the case removed, the Gauss rifle removed, and instead replaced with things like normal autocannons, 5 and 10, sometimes 20 for rare variants. The armor was also upgraded by 2 tons from the 732 version, but the only reason they could get away with that, despite lacking the ferro now, is because they stripped out a ton of the really heavy weapons on it, so they freed up extra tonnage. There was a Royal variant as well, which is the one that Comstar just hoarded like you wouldn't believe. This is the B version of the 732. It drops some of the heat sinks, so it's running hotter, and in exchange adds Artemis 4 to all of the missiles, which is basically a really advanced fire control computer, and it allows them to cluster the missiles really heavily. Normally, when you fire the missiles, they kind of spread out everywhere. It's like a swarm of them. You're saturating an area. But with an Artemis 4 fire control system, you can cluster the missiles on one area, or a very close area. And the last one that I wanted to talk about is a special, kinda like questionably canon. It's a custom version used by a main character, and that is the 732 Jorgensen. This was used by a clan Widowmaker, by one of their big up important leaders. This one basically replaces everything with clan tech and turns the mech into an absolute abomination without actually turning it into a 2C version of it. They basically put ER large lasers, which are insane. They do a lot of damage. ER large lasers outrange most of the stuff the inner sphere has. It's like 1.5 kilometers, and they can cut you in half. And they also replace the Gauss rifle with a clan version, which of course fires faster, fires farther, and does more damage while weighing less because of course it does. It also has the Artemis 4 enhanced long-range missiles and 13 double heat sinks. So it functionally has 26 regular heat sinks, which is absolutely insane.
It will come block out the sun on its descent down to you.
Our mechs will black out the sun with the number of death from aboves we're doing.
This is not 300. Do not be fooled. It's a rain of mechs.
We will fight in the shade. Oh, don't worry, you'll die in it too. And that pretty much sums up. Oh, I don't want to say the name. No, it's the end of the script. Fine, I'll give you one last bagpipe blast. This pretty much sums up the Highlander, and I'm not going to mention the Highlander. And I'm not going to talk too much about the Highlander 2C because it's because it looks very much similar and it's a clan mech. It's got different internals, but it's different from the regular Highlander, so it's fine. We can just leave it off to the side and end the video here. I'm just bulldozing through it. I'm just gonna tank as many bagpipes as I need to. We're right at the end. I'll push through it. So this fully concludes our video on the Highlander. I hope that everyone that made it this far enjoyed the video and the absolute hell I've been going through. If you did make it this far into the video by some miracle through all of the bagpipes, then you are clearly the target audience, so why not considering leaving a like and subscribe, comment down below to help out with the algorithm, all of that good stuff, because every little bit does help push back against YouTube, especially for a small channel like this to get our content out there. And if you're feeling especially generous and want to support us directly, we have a Patreon where you can go over and throw a few bucks at us if you're feeling up to it. And speaking of patrons, a huge thanks to everybody already generously donating. Whether it be the arms dealers, making sure that all of the toys and tools you saw in today's video could be acquired and played with, whether it be the food merchants, making sure that my co-host is around and alive by cramming food down his face, or whether it be the coffee vendors fueling my war against sleep and allowing me to edit long into the early hours of the night. Thank you all very much for your support. We actually do have a little bit of an announcement here at the very, very end. Saturday the 25th, I'm actually going to be streaming on YouTube, going live, probably around like noon-ish. I'll make an announcement or something in the community tab. I'm going to be streaming Fallout, the original one, blind playthrough, going through the game, and we're going to experience the role-playing masterpiece that set the entire post-apocalyptic genre into the mainstream. So show up for that, hopefully.